Hello again everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are headed off on a very gentlemanly outing. We are back in the FlyingIron Simulations Grumman F6F once again, currently on the ground at Redhill Aerodrome, and we're going to be taking the Hellcat on a short hop down south towards Goodwood. For those of you who weren't aware, Goodwood Aerodrome is home to the Goodwood Festival of Speed. The festival is touted as being the world's greatest celebration of motorsport and car culture, and the Goodwood racetrack actually surrounds the airfield itself. It's been modelled as well by Burning Blue Designs. Once we're landed at Goodwood with the aircraft shut down, we're actually going to be taking a few laps around the Goodwood circuit in the GamerDeal Mercedes C63 Coupe. Obviously we're not expecting great things from a racing experience within the sim, but nevertheless I thought it'd be good fun. Anyway, we'll talk more about that as we go. As ever, I do hope you enjoy the video. I'm certainly looking forward to getting back into the FlyingIron Simulations Hellcat. As ever, if you did enjoy the flight, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. Our Hellcat today sporting a beautiful Royal Naval livery created by Jankees, available over on flightsim.to. It should be a fun day out, so let's head for the cockpit and we'll be on our way. So, welcome once again to the cockpit of the FlyingIron Simulations Grumman F6F. As discussed, we are currently on the ground at Burning Blue Designs Redhill Aerodrome, and we're going to be taking the aircraft down towards the south, heading in towards Goodwood for a spot of racing. Really looking forward to getting back into the Hellcat. It should be a pretty fun day out overall, so with that in mind, running through our engine start checks. Cowl flaps are set fully open, throttle is set 1/5 open, mixture can go to auto lean, supercharger lever is set to neutral, battery master is on, fuel selector will come onto the right main tank, which we now have selected, and just checking our fuel quantities there, both the left and the right mains are fully fueled up, reserve tank is empty, fuel pump is on, fuel pressure is checked, 8 psi there, we'll prime the engine, max can go onto both, and checking the prop area, give everyone a shout, clear prop, and we can crank up that mighty double wasp engine. Okay, so that double wasp ticking over quite nicely now, just idling around 800 RPM for the time being. The after start checks will cage up the starter, radio master can go on, and once again the cowl flaps are fully open, tail wheel is unlocked. In terms of the wind, pretty dead this morning looking at the windsock, so we're just going to make our way out towards the 10 o'clock position here. Looks like there's a bit of a clearing. We'll carry out the run up. So it breaks off, fully back on the stick to keep the tail wheel down on the ground, and just feeding in a tiny bit more throttle here just to get the Hellcat rolling. A little bit of right brake as well, just to keep the aircraft on the taxiway. All clear on the right. And a little bit of left brake now just to tighten up the turn. As I say, not much wind around, so we'll get the tail pointed out towards the trees, just to make sure we're not blasting anybody with our prop wash. And taking the taxi and indeed the turn, nice and slowly here, just to avoid tipping the aircraft over once we come onto the brakes. So over onto the grass, we'll just get ourselves back towards the edge of the area here and then swing the aircraft around. Coming up on the throttle, again using a little bit of left brake here just to swing the aircraft around. What little wind there is looks to be about off the nose now, so the brakes can go on. Just coming back to 1000 RPM for now. And again, just checking behind the aircraft. Nothing behind us. Safe for the run up, wings are extended and locked. Cowl flaps can come back to the half open position now. And the oil cooler flaps are fully open. Intercooler shutter is closed, prop is set to high RPM, mixture is set to auto rich, fuel selector staying on the right main, carburetor air is in, fuel pressure is checked, canopy is open, flight instruments are set, and the flight controls are full free and in the correct sense. Coming up to 1700 RPM then, again fully back on the stick. There's 1700, temperatures and pressures looking good. We'll check the mags. Onto the left. And down to around 1600 RPM, we'll go back to both. Back up to 1700, onto the right mag. Again down to 1600. And back to both. We'll cycle the prop. And the prop's checked. All the way back to idle. And looks like the engine's just about ticking over there around 550 RPM. And again, just feeding a little bit of throttle, we'll idle just below 1000. So last of our checks, rudder. We'll set 2 units. So there's 2 units right, elevator tab is neutral. According to the checklist, aileron tab wants to go to neutral as well, but I like a little bit of right aileron trim in there. Around 0.5 units I find is pretty good for the takeoff and the climb. The takeoff itself, wing flaps are up. Tail wheel we'll just leave unlocked until we've made our way out towards the runway. So we're going to be joining straight ahead here again, back onto the main taxiway. And we'll be departing out of Redhill this morning off runway 18. Okay, so we are all set and ready to go here on runway 18. We'll look up the tail wheel. And again, just confirming, trim tabs are set, cow flaps are half open, all cooler shutter is fully open. Flaps are up, flight controls are full and free, engine temperatures and pressures are checked, brakes can come off. And we'll start feeding in the throttle. We're looking for 44 inches manifold pressure for the takeoff. Just using a little bit of brake initially to keep the aircraft straight. And power is set. Easing back on the stick. And we're airborne. Climbing away nicely, so we'll tap the brakes, the gear can come up. Coming up through 300 feet, once again confirming the flaps are up. Up through 500 feet, so we'll come back to our climb power setting. And we're going to start a turn straight out towards the north. So there's 35 inches manifold pressure, 2500 RPM.
And we'll level off around 1300 feet. We don't want to climb any higher than 1500 feet to avoid entering into London Gatwick's airspace. We'll leave the canopy open for the flight today just to enjoy the wonderful noises from that excellent FlyingIron Simulations Redhill engine. So initially we're going to be tracking out towards the north. We'll be following the motorway out towards the junction with the M25. You can see the motorway there just off the left wing. And again, keeping a really good eye on our altitude here, making sure we don't climb above 1500 feet. We'll come back to our cruise power setting now, so 30 inches manifold pressure. And 2300 RPM. 1400 feet currently on the altimeter, and the motorway just off on the left, so we'll follow that out towards the north. We can start easing off on that rudder trim now that we've come back on the power. So just getting that turn and skid indicator ball centered up once again. Nicely in trim now, and again with the aileron trim there set as around half a unit. I find that's pretty good for a cruise power setting. So good on the altimeter, just following the motorway for the time being. Just navigating point to point for now. We'll be flying heading in a time later on. Again, just waiting till we see the intersection with the M25, which is just coming up below the right wing there now. So here's the junction. We'll follow the M25 out towards the west. And again, we'll just follow the contours of the road for now. No need to follow a heading. Okay, we're clear of Gatwick's airspace at this point, so we can climb now up to 2400 feet. That's going to keep us clear of the London TMA. So it's 2500 RPM, 35 inches manifold pressure. Tracking for now then, following the M25 out towards the town of Leatherhead initially. Off on the right we should have Epsom Downs. The race course should be somewhere off the right wing, but I think that's going to be a little bit tricky to spot currently. And we'll keep a good eye on our altimeter here, so just coming up through 2000 feet. The airspace is 2500 feet, so again planning to level off at 2400. The motorway just curving out towards the northwest momentarily, and that is correct versus the chart. So just doing 500 feet per minute here in the climb. Again, keeping a good eye on the altimeter, making sure we get the aircraft levelled off. Here's Leatherhead then coming up off the nose. And there's 2400, so once again coming back to 30 inches manifold pressure. And 2300 RPM. Just get the aircraft trimmed out here in pitch for straight and level flights. So overhead Leatherhead itself, that's about 2/3 distance on our leg out towards waypoint 2. Waypoint 1 of course being the intersection there at the M25 junction. And just following the M25 now, back round towards the west. We'll be flying over Wisley or Weasley Airfield. Disused airfield now, I think we can see that actually out at our 11 o'clock. And interestingly, also the location of the Ockham VOR, which I'm sure many British flyers will be familiar with. So we'll try and spot that as we pass overhead the airfield. You can probably make out the runway now, just off the left of the nose. Say east-westerly runway. After we turn overhead the airfield, we're looking for a heading of 203. So we'll just set up our compass here ahead of time. So that's 203. It's going to be an 8-minute leg after the turn out towards Goodwood. So again, disused airfield. You can see the runway there in quite a state of disrepair. Actually, just out to the north of us as well, we've got Brooklands, another former airfield, as well as a former racetrack. Really good museum at Brooklands as well. I highly recommend checking that out if you're into your aviation and racing. So the VOR itself is actually incorrectly modelled there as a building in the sim. Anyway, turning overhead the airfield onto our heading of 203. And looking good there now on the heading. Just getting ourselves back up to around 2,400 feet. Off at our 2 o'clock there, we've got the town of Guildford. And as I say, about 8 minutes out towards Goodwood, just coming up on 11:14. So expecting to arrive at Goodwood around time 22. Temperatures and pressures looking reasonable. The oil temperature there coming up towards 100 degrees now. We'll keep a good eye on that, but for the time being I think we'll keep the oil cooler shutter fully closed. And looking good on the heading here, good on the altitude. Just coming up on Guildford. We're actually going to be passing right overhead the Midhurst VOR as well, so a little bit of a shame we don't have any VOR navigation capability on board the Hellcat. Well, that would have made our flight much easier today. So passing Guildford, you can see we've got Hazelmere, again just off to our 2 o'clock position. And you can actually already make out the English coastline there as well. Goodwood more or less down on the coast. As we get further towards the coast we should be able to see the Isle of Wight as well. Anyway, once again, really good fun to be back in the Hellcat. Always a pleasure to fly the aircraft. I know a lot of people don't like Warbirds in the sim, but I really enjoy these sorts of flights, cruising around. And that higher cruise speed as well just makes for slightly more of a navigational challenge, coupled of course with the lack of navigational equipment in most Warbirds. So the plan for today, as I say, we're going to head down towards Goodwood. Thought it'd be interesting to check out Burning Blue Design's most recent release. And as discussed during the introduction, they've actually modelled the racetrack as well, which is really nice to see. The track itself pretty much goes around the perimeter of the airfield, so I thought we'd land over at Goodwood, get the Hellcat parked up, and we'll have a go at putting a car around the track. I don't expect it's going to be particularly high fidelity racing simulation, of course. Not going to be up there with the likes of iRacing or R-Factor, but nevertheless I thought it'd be fun to give it a go. Okay, so we are approaching Goodwood. You can see the English coastline much more clearly now. We've also just cleared the London airspace, so no concerns there about our altitude. Again, we've got the Isle of Wight off at our 2 o'clock, the same there for Portsmouth. You can just make out Thorney Island as well, and the water there leading in towards the town of Chichester. Chichester's just out to the south of Goodwood. Off the nose we've got Selsey Point and Bognor Regis off our 11 o'clock. I'm just going to turn here onto a more southwesterly heading, just to make sure we have Goodwood off the left wing. That's going to help us visually identify the aerodrome a little bit more readily. And it's going to get pretty busy in the circuit here in the Hellcat, so we'll get our downwind checks out of the way ahead of time. So the brakes are checked and off, undercarriage will hold, mixture is set to auto rich, fuel pump is on, fuel quantities are checked. Just come over to the left tank there, so we'll start burning that down for the approach. Flight instruments are checked, harness is secure, and again we've still got the canopy open here for the arrival. So we've got the horse racing track just down here off the left of the nose. Goodwood Aerodrome should be just off to the south of that. I think we can already make it out off to our 11 o'clock position. As usual, we'll just overfly the airfield. We should have our pick of the runways today. There's no real wind around, so we'll just pick the runway that has us closest to the parking area once we vacate. So again, the race course just down on our left, the horse racing course that is. And Goodwood Aerodrome, you can see just off our 10 o'clock. So again we've got Chichester out towards the south. And you can see the Solent a bit more clearly there now out towards the west of us. As I mentioned in the cruise, the race course more or less just runs straight around the airfield itself. It's the old perimeter track, I presume, of the airfield. Doesn't look to have been updated all that much. So I think we'll take runway 14 here, which is just passing off the left wing. That way we'll be able to vacate straight off to the left, inbound towards the parking area. So we'll just continue in the left turn here. We'll come back round for a left-hand downwind, back onto runway 14. Nice little touch as ever from Burning Blue Designs there. You can see we've got a couple of cars working their way around the racetrack. And as I say, that'll be us once we've got the Hellcat on the ground and shut down. You can see the Goodwood WMR there as well, modelled a little bit more accurately than we saw there at Ockham. Anyway, the runway's all clear. Just wait until we've rolled out and downwind here and then we'll come back on the power. So backing off the throttle. And just letting that speed bleed off. Once we get on the speed we'll take the gear down. So speed looking good, gear can come down. And we'll come back up on the throttle for now, maintain the speed. Gear indications look good. We'll turn inbound towards final, we'll take the flaps down as well. So just keeping a good eye on our airspeed, we'll maintain around 120 knots for the time being. All clear on final. And just commencing a turn to roll out here onto runway 14. You can hear the flaps continuing to come down. So rolling out onto final, pitch is full fine. Undercarriage is down, flaps are set. Landing clearance not required, the runway is clear. Just starting to feed in some power now to shallow off our descent. There goes the final stage of flap. Slight wind out from the right there, looking at the windsock. And we're just going to keep a little bit of power on here for the touchdown. There is touchdown. Fully back on the stick. Onto the brakes. And as we slow down here, just starting to brake a little bit more firmly. So vacating the runway, the flaps can come up, and the outflying checks. Flaps are up, tail wheel is unlocked. We'll go over towards the apron there, get ourselves parked up next to the Mark 9. At least I think it's a Mark 9 looking from here. Cowl flaps can go fully open, same there for the oil cooler shutter. Intercooler shutter will leave closed. Got old Gertie there off the right wing, the Silver Spitfire. Ordinarily I think this would have been a Spitfire trip, seems a little bit ungentlemanly to take a Hellcat over towards Goodwood, but obviously wanting to enjoy FlyingIron Simulation's latest work today, we'll have to take an outing in the Silver Spitfire at a later date though. So we'll just park in behind the Mark 9 here, just using a little bit of right brake again to tighten up the turn. Straightening the aircraft up. Onto the brakes. We'll leave the engine idling around 1000 RPM momentarily. And for the shutdown, we'll lock up the tail wheel. Radio master can go off. And we'll cut the mixture. So good rundown, we'll close the throttle, mags can come off. Fuel pump can go off. And we'll select the off position there on the fuel tank, just working our way around the cockpit, so tail wheel is locked. Just centre up our aileron trim once again. Leave the cowl flaps and the oil shutter flap open. Mags are off. Battery master is off. And that's the Hellcat shutdown. As I say, we'll now head off and enjoy an entirely different experience here at Goodwood.
So there you go guys, I hope you enjoyed another outing in the FlyingIron Simulations Grumman F6F Hellcat. As ever, very nice products as well from Burning Blue Designs with both their Redhill and Goodwood Aerodrome sceneries. The Goodwood Aerodrome scenery actually includes the Goodwood Motor Circuit, the home of the Festival of Speed. And again, as discussed, I thought it'd be good fun to take the GamerDeal Mercedes C63 on a lap around the circuit. Obviously we're not expecting some sort of high fidelity racing experience here, and I have to say I put in far more laps than I care to mention, trying to get a decent performance out of the car. Further to that, the choppy frame rate coupled with the rather unusual handling did actually leave me feeling slightly nauseous towards the end of the session. Anyway, we are just going to complete one flying lap here around the Goodwood race circuit in the Mercedes C63. I'll talk you through the lap as best I can, but once again really the aim of the game here is just to have some fun.
So just coming out to the chicane here as we start our flying lap down the start finish straight, the pit lane just off on our right. Throttle fully pegged currently, coming over the start finish line at 150 km an hour. Off the throttle onto the brakes, again braking action in the Mercedes pretty poor. Getting the car turned in for our first right hander, unfortunately missing the apex there as we come through Magic Corner. So just getting the car slowed down again, making the right apex this time. Goodwood VOR off on the right as we come down the main straight towards Fordwater. Up through 180 km an hour. Briefly just lifting off onto the brakes again, getting the car turned in towards the right, hitting the apex of the corner there and letting the car wander out to the left. 190 km an hour as we come back onto the brakes, again getting the car slowed down rather early here. Coming in towards St Mary's, we need to be back at around 100 km an hour here as we come through the left hand turn. Hitting the apex and again back up on the throttle, but only briefly. Coming up towards Levant Corner, which we need to be nice and slow, around 80 km an hour for that. So again off the gas, onto the brakes. Unfortunately missing the apex of the turn here, so getting rather bogged down. Back down to around 50 km an hour, ideally we want to be around 80. On the throttle once again, getting the car turned in early, just about making the apex there for the right hand turn. Now onto the Levant straight, the main straight of the course, really the only part of the track where you can relax, getting the car onto the left hand apex there. And again, just showing how poor the braking is in the C63. Actually starting to brake now as we come through Woodcut. Still on the brakes here, still slowing down, 130 km an hour. Want to be back down around 100. Looking good there on the speed, still only just managing to get the car turned in there. Just about making the apex, everything looking very leisurely here, but I can assure you that the Mercedes does not handle particularly well. Coming up once again to the chicane, back down to around 70 km an hour there to make sure we make it through. And the car still stepping out there at the rear as we come back up towards the start finish straight. Again, fully on the throttle, up to 100 kilometers an hour, down the pit lane. Not a stellar lap by any means, but as I say, it's actually a really difficult challenge trying to get this car around the track.
So there you go, ladies and gents. I do hope you enjoyed our gentleman's day out in both the FlyingIron Simulations Grumman F6F Hellcat and the GamerDeal Mercedes C63 here at Goodwood. Both of the aerodrome sceneries that we visited here today are available from Burning Blue Designs. The Hellcat, again, of course, available from FlyingIron Simulations. And the GamerDeal Mercedes, once again, available over on FlightSim.to. Something a little bit different in the sim there, obviously a little bit of a novelty as well. If you did enjoy our outing, then please consider giving the video a like. If you want to see more content from the channel, then please consider subscribing as well. A big thank you to both Burning Blue Designs and FlyingIron Simulations for letting us take a look at their products. And thank you as well to GamerDeal for his hard work on the Mercedes. A huge thank you as well to my channel members and patrons for all of your support. It is thoroughly appreciated. Anyway guys, as always, a big thank you for watching. I do hope that you're all doing well. Take really good care, and I will see you all again soon.